Welcome to the Growth with AI podcast, hosted by Integrated AI Services. I'm Peter Martinson, and today's episode dives into how AI is reshaping brand strategy, creative development, and the way agencies deliver value. Our guest is Jerry Youngblutt, partner and vice president at Boyden and Youngblutt, a team known for helping brands uncover their body and soul before building campaigns that truly connect. Jerry brings decades of perspective and creative leadership, and now he's integrating AI into the agency's research, strategy, and production. Jerry, it's great to have you here.
Peter, I couldn't be more pleased to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let me just ask how did you get to where you are now? How did you get to being in healthcare marketing?
That's a interesting story. I started off as an artist at Disney World back, date myself here, but clear back in the Epcot. I saw the Epcot ball in the dirt. So if that makes any sense, it was still just dirt around it. And that sort of took off. After Disney, I came back, got a business degree from Indiana University, ran into a guy that I met in college, Andy Boyden, accidentally on the street corner in Fort Wayne, Indiana one day. And we started talking and comparing notes and why are you back? What do you want to do? I want to be in the agency business. Know anything about it? Well, a little. He told me more. As that conversation continued, he said, what do you think it's missing? I told him. And he goes, what if we filled that void? And we joined together and did that. And I said, yeah, I'd be interested in that. So one day he calls my house. And we had the old wall phone back in the day. We walked over there and pick up the wall phone. And I'm like, huh, it was Andy. And when I hang up, my wife goes, oh my gosh, who died? What happened? And I'm like, what do you mean? What happened? She goes, you are as white as a ghost. And I said, well, that was Andy. And he quit his job today. And we have to decide if we're in the business with him or not. He's already doing it. And
Wow.
she goes, well, what did you tell him? And I told him we'd think about it. And so I got back to him later and said, yeah, we're going to do it. So that's how it all started. That's why I love the guy. He gets things done. It's planned fear, I guess, in some regard. So it's like, okay, we know what could happen here. But I like that. He had jumped out on his own once before and saw the lay of the land and went, okay, we really need to have this and this in alignment to really do what I want to do. He was very successful, but more as a one person at that time. So he was like, I want to do more than that. I want to grow an agency. And there's just a lot to do, as you know. I mean, if you're in a one person business, that's a lot. And so Andy's a brilliant guy. We get along really well just because we're both sort of creative and strategic, and that sort of worked. So we were just blessed to get a healthcare client almost 6 months into us opening the agency, and it fit. And you don't know it's going to fit, Peter, I don't think, because you're thinking products, coming through college. You're like, oh, I want to market this product. So here you have an intangible. And what we learned was that we were pretty decent at creating a tangible thing out of an intangible offer. And that sort of put us on a plane, and we really like that. So here we are,
Fantastic.
35 years later, still doing healthcare.
Yeah, I noticed on your LinkedIn profile that you'd been in creative something at Disney, and
Yeah,
it sounded wonderful.
it was interesting. Like I worked on Tokyo Disneyland and the Epcot Center because it wasn't open. And my first day there, I walk in this room and it's just a huge room with one man in the middle with one light above this man. And there's a little clay armature there. And the gentleman that was taking me to where I'm going to work introduced me. I do not remember the man's name, but you thought I would. I've too much of a nervous kid those days. And anyway, it was his last day, my first day. And he was the man that did all the clay armatures for like Lady and the Tramp and all those famous movies. And I'm like, wow, So I was all excited. I'm going to be around this guy. And then they're like, well, actually, it's his last day. So I'm like, all right. Then my sign-on bonus just went out the door there. So
Wow.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. You saw a lot of interesting things happen through that experience. They came in one day and pushed us all out. There wasn't because it was led by a bunch of creatives. I don't know, but they sort of got the books out of whack, like they were borrowing from Peter to pay Paul kind of thing.
Mm.
And so they gave us 2 or 3 days off while they got that worked out, and they came back and off we go again. It was funny too, because I was in Orlando, and if you would go out back then, they would say, well, you either work at Disney or you're in the Navy. And I'm like, why is that? And they said, it's your haircut. I'm like, oh, because you really had to wear it short. And so we're all running around in, wed design, they called it, in Orlando. And then we got a picture one day of the wed design group in California. It was like Jerry Garcia and family. It was just like, wait a minute, you're wearing tie-dyed shirts, you got this crazy hair. And we're practically in, uniforms and military haircuts. So
That's
yeah.
funny.
So it's kind of just
Well, I'm sure that a large percentage of our viewers will have been to Epcot because I know that I
yeah,
visited Epcot back in the 80s,
yeah.
which of course has absolutely nothing to do with what this podcast is about. So drag us back on track. So, you're using AI in your agency now, but what prompted you and your team to bring AI in and start using it in marketing and brand building?
We've always been early adopters, for, small agency, but you could still, maybe it was easier to early adopt. I don't know. As a matter of fact, I would pick on us a little bit to say we adopted so early that it was a mistake. Honestly, we were pivoting too quickly. So over the years, people have said, well, the world seems to be in this place. What's your advice? And I said, my advice is that you have to pivot. Yes, but you have to pivot with the right intensity and at the right speed. It's critical. We've really hamstringed ourselves a few times. So with the AI, it just seemed like a no-brainer. I mean, we've all read about it. I love sci-fi anyway, so you have all these decades of things that you wish. And I was caught off guard though, to be honest. When it rolled out, I was just like, wait, what? I wasn't following the news on it. And so, instantly had a meeting at the office, shut the place up for a couple of hours and said, hey, here's this AI thing after I'd gotten my feet under me with it, and just said, we're all going to look at AI from our own unique job perspectives. So if you're a
Hmm.
writer, look at it from a writer. If you're a videographer, same thing. Creative, same thing. A strategist. So that's how we broke it into pieces. And so what we would do is we would all go learn about it during the week. And then every week we would get back together and share what we learned. And it really sort of helped people keep up to speed better because you had a multiple number of people that were doing just their specific thing. And, we had just learned that little trick from the years. I would ask the art department, how are you learning all this new software that you're getting and all the upgrades? And they said, had an open environment. So they said, we sit here and we share, we talk out loud while we're working, and everybody's, how do you do this? And they just can just do it. So we took that same approach with the AI, and it was very helpful.
That's a great way to do it.
It worked out. It
Yeah,
worked. Yeah. Otherwise,
nice.
I think it's overwhelming. I mean, it could be
Mhm.
overwhelming otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're trying to do your full-time job and learn
That's it.
something that really is completely new and honestly changes by
Yeah.
the week, sometimes by the day.
Boy, it does. Yeah, you can go close on the hour, I think. And yeah, exactly. I think the other thing about us was we were never trying to be this giant agency, so culture was really important to us. And our people obviously are your business, really. You're
Mhm.
not in it alone. I think Andy and I started, the older we got, felt more like the parents of the agency than the managers or whatever. And part of it was to keep your people motivated and educated so that they were always employable. It just always going to be a better, um, whatever, graphic artist or whatever. So that was some of the motivation behind it, was just to constantly, because it's easy to prod them, but it's easy to just get complacent. You're working on this and you just do it. And next thing you know, it's like, why don't I know those skills? And we never
Mhm.
wanted that. We wanted to give them time to learn the skill. And so we sort of also encouraged it.
Awesome. Well, that's a great perspective as the boss, I'll tell you.
Well, yeah, I mean, really, it was a win-win. Everybody
Mhm.
wins, and part of our job, some people would say, "Well, geez, if you're going to spend money on that and time, what if that person leaves?" And the whole idea is, well, if you create a great culture, they're not really wanting to go anywhere.
Yeah.
They want to be there, and now you have a person that kind of can wear multiple hats, or is more of an expert in their area. So that's where we are. I think it's just real interesting. I mean, I've been using a lot of AI. I mostly use chat. I think I started out with Perplexity, which I loved. So I'm starting to just now bounce around again a little bit. But the more I think you're trying to find its edges, really, because you're trying to find application confidence, which is how you and I met because, I liked what you're offering. And I'm like, I really need to understand that better, because I don't like to try and talk to a client about anything that I'm not an expert on. I don't want to lead them down the wrong path. And so what do? Reach out to people like you, have more expertise, and you dovetail together and you make that client happier.
Awesome. That's a great philosophy. So I'm curious, how has your use of AI changed the way your firm approaches this body and soul?
It's questioning because the body part of it is obviously what you're offering, but what's the intent? What's your why behind it is closer to your soul. As we see it, we're very big into asking, well, I want to know what the C suite is thinking and what they're hoping to accomplish. And that's not a knock against the marketing people, by the way. I feel like the C suite really has the vision, has the time to have the vision, and everybody's going to march to that drum beat. So the problem is that I think there's a lot of misalignment inside of organizations where the
Hmm.
left is always talking to the right. So there's a presumption, and that presumption can get a marketing agency or branding firm way off the mark right from the beginning. So we've just found that if we're in with the C-suite and those marketing leadership people, we're all hearing it at the same time. We become better partners. After those meetings, you have to get together and sort of remember where it is you're headed and why certain things work and some things don't work as the year goes on. So we use the AI because it's like, okay, that's just a new tool set to maybe achieve those C-suite goals in a different way, a faster way, a more sustainable way, a way that we don't have to spend any more money. I would love to. I try to be as efficient with the client's money as I can because I've always believed that if you didn't spend it here, they'll just utilize it with you to do something else that would have been great to have. So we see that efficiency is really not a threat. And so we want to stretch their dollar as far as we can. It's more things that we're going to be able to do, which then, in my mind, equates to more success of reaching those goals.
Now, so I'm curious, how do you handle a divide or a misunderstanding between the C-suite and the marketing team?
Well, that's a great question, actually. So, what we do is we'll go in and we do one on ones, and we go in and we ask the C suite pretty much the same questions and the marketing people the same questions. And you just simply get a lot of different answers. And a question could be, where are we going to be in 2 years? And how are we going to get there?
Mhm.
Follow up question. And it's like scattered arrows. I mean, it's like and it's like, wow, that should really be aligned. I mean, we should know those things. And it's no one's fault, really. It's life. It's busy. It's this technology in a way with emails and texts because you take those the wrong way. So almost all of it is just honest misalignment. And so we get back together with that same group of people and we talk about those questions. And part of the promise is that we won't tell who said what, right? But a good team with great culture, they rat themselves out, so to speak. They're like, oh, I was the one that said that. Because we'll say, hey, here's the question, here's what we heard. And everybody's like, how could that be? There's no way. And so it's really a fun, good exercise, and I would say almost every single time, bar none, those people really appreciate one another more after those sort of discussions because they feel comfort. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get realigned here," and off we go. So, and I tell them, I'm like, if you're off an inch, clear back here. By the time that our communication reaches the audience, what's it off 10 feet, 1,000 feet? I don't know, but it's off, and
Yeah.
you can't be off anymore. So.
Wow. Okay. Um, so where or what aspects of sort of a traditional marketing workflow have you found have been disrupted the most by AI? And where do you still use just straight human decisions and creativity and judgment?
It's a really good but tough question, I think. And I think it depends on the discipline. I think some people like we're doing storyboarding with it and all those things, which is just great. I mean,
Mhm.
nobody's sitting around with a marker or nobody's looking for images forever. We're actually getting to those storyboards really quickly. So I would say the creative department is using it a lot. I would say the copywriters and the strategists are really starting to figure out where does it help me and where do I need to help myself? So because there is that, and that double check, We
Yeah.
all hear about the AI slop and all that, but I think some of that is garbage in, garbage out too, to be fair. We are all learning how to prompt it correctly to get to what we want quicker. And yet, I think we've all learned too that, hey, it's really great at some things, but right now it's just not ready. I don't think anybody believes that it won't be ready. I mean, it's coming. Right. And I think the other area that it has hurt us, I don't know if this is answering your question specifically, but I think it's important, is that a lot of what we've been trying to do is trying to manage client expectations. So if they get on social and they see this amazing video, which there are some, they think, well, we could just do that. It's just like, boom, and it's done. And it's like, actually, it's not. And a lot of people in my industry are going, how are people creating this? I can't create it. And I've been doing this for 20 years and I'm totally into tech. So my question has been lately, how many tokens and how many man hours and how many different what's the tech stack look like to build this? Because
Mhm.
my belief is, and I don't have any proof for this, but it feels like I couldn't charge enough for that. No one would pay what it took to get there. So right now I feel like that's okay because that's back to sub. But it does require that you manage expectations on the client side because they're not really in the trenches with you on that yet. They just see it and believe it, and well, they're doing it, so why can't you do it? So that's a lot of it for us, how we're playing with it right now. But it's immensely helpful, just ridiculously helpful. It's actually should let everybody have a great day because it shortcuts a lot of the things you probably didn't love to do, and it allows you to really massage the things that you do like to do.
Yeah. So, have you heard the story of the Coca-Cola ad that came out a month ago that was 100% generated by AI?
I don't think so.
The internet being the internet, people took a magnifying glass to the video
Oh, yeah.
and really, really looked at all the details. And apparently, there are 10 instances where the axle configurations on the 18 wheelers change from scene to scene.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, was that because somebody didn't bother to look? Or was that somebody looked at it and said, if we let that go live, it'll get a lot of comments, and what
Great
we're
point.
interested in is comments.
Yes.
So it would be interesting to know the actual backstory on that. But I agree. Um, I have occasionally tried to get ChatGPT to do images,
Yeah.
and it'll be 98% what I want, and I'll try to get it to make just a little bitty tweak, and it
Yeah.
changes the whole thing. And I'm like, that's not what I asked for.
Yeah.
Please don't.
Well, no, you're exactly right. And so I've went to the creative director not that long ago and I said, well, why can't we do this or this? And he goes, we can do it and we can play with it to probably get it really close. Maybe like
Mhm.
you said, 90%. He goes, the problem is you take it to the client and the client says, hey, make these tweaks.
Yeah.
And you come back to make the tweak and you have your situation. All of a sudden it's like, where'd everything go? And
Yeah.
I think some of it is there probably is a handbook here somewhere that says here, because I've used some language before and like it came back and said, yeah, you just tell me to lock it down from this point behind and I won't change anything. So I'm like, okay, great. So I did that. But after a while, it still breaches its own rules and it unlocks what it had locked down. So I see where the skepticism is. And, my thought is I'm wondering if the AI companies had worked with this for so long that they're like, we've got to start generating revenue. We've got to do something. And maybe was it put out just a little sooner on some of those things, not all of it, than they were wanting to do? I don't know. And it sounds like every day it's, Gemini's ahead, then chat, then and off it goes. So I've asked someone, I said something on LinkedIn the other day and a guy reached out that I know and he goes, you got to try Comet. So I haven't really gotten back on Comet yet. So supposedly a lot different experience, I think, with Comet on some of the issues we've just spoken about. So yeah, I think that's just your world now. It's just
Yeah.
constantly, you're juggling, trying to figure out where you need to be and which tech stack you need to be using.
So I am curious because you're in healthcare, which is parts of healthcare are very regulated. Do you find that you're having any challenges or issues with using AI, which is quite unregulated, in a regulated space like healthcare?
Yeah, you do. I think there's, by design, slow adoption happening there. They're definitely healthcare in general to me is looking at it for efficiency use for some of that lower area work that needs to get done to get to the bigger stuff. And I don't think it's going to change a lot. Interestingly enough, I just read an article this morning of a guy that took a developer for AI into a hospital system. I
Mhm.
think it was Epic, and they're looking at Epic, and Epic is kind of the backbone of it, and they said it's completely leaving so much data on the table that's usable data. That was the first I'd seen about this, so I see AI coming into the system, and I'm wondering what it's gonna do eventually for people like me that are trying to put the messaging out, and you've got HIPAA compliance, and you've got all these things you can't do already. How's that gonna relate? So I don't know if we just haven't really used it that much in healthcare because they're being very cautious as they should be. So we're experimenting with it in other areas, manufacturing and some accounts that we do have that are non-healthcare, and that's a little bit safer environment, it feels like right now.
Yeah, the last thing you want is a hallucination about your diagnosis, right?
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna want that. You don't want bad medical advice. It's just almost hilarious right now with everybody that's online having to put their own personal disclaimer out before they say what they're about to say. And the one I say to everybody that I'm tired of saying is, "Well, I don't know if this is true, but I just read this or I just saw this." I'm
Yep.
like, it's exhausting." It's just I can't wait till we get past it. So, and we did with traditional versus digital. We sort of just it is what it is now, and so we don't use that traditional word quite as much as we were using it when it first hit. So hopefully we'll get past this other thing too.
We will eventually, but it'll be interesting to see how long that takes.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, do you have a roadmap for how AI is gonna make more changes to your agency in the next 6 to 12 months?
We c Sort of when and this is going back, 4 years, and I'm not saying this makes us at all intelligent, it just makes us cautious, right? You question it all, nowadays. So, we were looking at it, though, and as you were reading, if you're like we were, like I told you, we were early adopters, and so we were reading, but like I said, I was really didn't see chat coming out, just here we are. So, I had just been reading a little bit about the AI and what we thought it could do, enough that I felt like it was gonna really happen way quicker than it starting to settle in, that it started I feel like the pace is on their end, on the AI developer end, is fast. On the user end and adoption level, I don't think it's as fast as I thought it was gonna be. That's what I'm trying to say. So, nonetheless, I looked around and I looked at our job titles that were on the agency roster. And I thought, I think there's going to be fewer of some of these job titles. And I think there are going to be job titles that we don't even have yet. And so, who's going to be the agent, the curator or the keeper of the agent, or at least the knowledge? Because, you know, just like when we first started learning AI and we said, use your discipline and learn it from that perspective and then share that with everybody else that works here, there's gonna be enough different I think there's gonna be enough different avenues of AI that somebody's gonna have to take on those. Somebody's gonna have to understand what's possible in each of those offerings. And I mean, already, I'm hearing a lot of scuttlebutt right now across the net. People are really not loving that their ads don't seem to be polling as well,
Mhm.
that game has been changing, and I think some of that, how that's gonna affect us in the future or, in the present and then in the future for sure, is that we need to figure out how we get a better heads up from the big social media people that they are changing those algorithms. That's always been a challenge, and so if you can adjust, but no one likes to waste, and so we've been doing a better job with our team of trying to know what's happening behind those curtains so that we can make the adjustments. But it really seems to, again, one of those things where just overnight, people start to talk and it hits enough of a crescendo that you start to hear about it. And it's a common thread right now with most brands.
Interesting. Okay. So I'd heard some noise about that also, but
Yeah.
it's interesting to hear it from yet another person.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. It must
Uh,
be real, right? Or part of it.
when you're hearing it from real people and that you're talking to on a
Yeah.
video call like this instead of just reading about it, it does
Yeah.
tend to make it more real.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
But Well, I think that's a good place to start wrapping things up. Before we go, what do you want somebody who might hire you to know about you and your agency?
You know, I think that, it sort of ties into the AI conversation because we've always been, our tagline is "We think you win." That's our tagline.
Mhm.
Been that for decades, and the idea is that I think the best branding and a lot of the best marketing campaigns are it's in the nuances, the things that are because why? Well, that leads to just this sort of implied trust, or you feel it. You feel the
Mhm.
trust from the brand, and no one moves forward without some level of trust in whom they're going to work with or buy from. So we feel like that we're going to hone those skills, and that may be our main product. It kind of has been supporting our products over the years, but I think it's starting to become the thing that we have to offer. There's got to be a way for this AI to just to make that more efficient, and so that a lot of that thinking can be very affordable to every brand, but that's where I think it should start. So for most of the people that we're pitching today, it's twofold. One is they do have a project they want to try you on, so they want that trust factor that you've done something like that. But bigger than that, I'm starting to see this resurgence of strategy, of real thinking again. We sort of took a hiatus, I think, as a country for a while because efficiency was just driving everything. And it was just like instead of having a photographer, where's my iPhone? I'll just go shoot that. I think we're moving out of that. At least I hope we are, because I think people are very sensitive to it, a more of a quality feel. And those things to me erode away at trust. So I think we understand the value that we're trying to do there. And the other thing that we've moved into because of this thinking positioning is that we feel like our job is to help them grow their own people in a more productive way, but also to grow the business, of course. I mean, if you're not growing the business, why are you there? Why are they spending money with you? So the bonus, I think, is helping grow the people as sort of our own team members. And I think that's a healthy thing for every company because that strategic thinking has and strategic creative thinking has sort of been missing for a while.
Interesting. Well, that's a great philosophy to have for your clients. So
Yeah. Well,
well
thanks.
done.
Thank you.
So, well, Jerry, this has been a great conversation. It's been wonderful talking to you, and maybe we'll catch you again in a year and see how AI has changed your business some more.
Yeah, if I get down your way, I'm going to come into Nashville and visit you. So
Absolutely,
you had
we'll
some
go
great.
out for some. Sorry, we'll go out for some hot chicken.
Fair enough. Sounds great. Thank you. Thanks, Peter.
All right, take care.
You take care.